Right, Emma, where are we? Blah, 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 blah. Ready when you are. It wouldn't stay up, would it? That's the story of my life. Well, hi guys, and welcome back to MK Sportscars. We're back in the workshop. You know why? Because it's miserable outside and it's raining. Not ideal weather for these cars. It's a bit cold and a bit damp, so we've shut the shutters down, but we've got plenty going on here. Plenty going on inside for you. Here we go. Let's start off with the AB Arian. Well, this car you probably see was up for sale on our Facebook page and on our website. The West Suffolk College built this car, the Arian, had it for sale for a while. We've got a customer who's interested in it, so it's just basically passing through here now. So we've collected it today from the college. It's got to run in the CBR 1000RR power plant, stonking engine as we know, deliver great performance, great powers and sick RPM. Well, it's going to pass through and get collected by the prospective customer next week and head off to get finished, because there's a little bit of detailing, a little bit of finishing. We've done a video on this a few months back as well on it all, but little trims and bits to finish, minor details. Someone with a bit of basic skills and a bit of basic knowledge and a bit of workshop space, this will be a perfect project for them. Right, here we are, Indy Classic time, ZZR1100 engine. I think we showed you last week about it if you had a few problems. Well, we've done a compression test on the new engine that was coming in, which we know it was down on compression a little bit. We've taken the other engine out. We're trying to make one engine out of two. Let me show you a couple of things on that actually. So here we go. Here's the old engine that come out. It's pretty obvious where the problem was. I can get my hand in there. That's where the piston tried to escape, had enough, didn't want to be in the engine anymore and said, brake for freedom. So we set about with the heads on both of these engines, trying to figure out, so we've got the other engine here, which is all good, the blocks, all good, checking the heads and everything else on it. But we've since found also that on one of these, I mean, it's just playing the pistons and etc. there, so we're working through that one as well. But why did this engine blow up? We've got to ask ourselves, what was the problem in the first place? Don't want it repeated. So drained oil, now you'd expect a little bit of oil in the engine bay, you know, but generally with a dry sump system, which we'll talk about in a bit, actually talk about dry sump systems, you had 5 to 6 litres of oil, so quite a lot of oil. We drained less than 2 litres out of this engine, so I think the oil levels were an issue because there certainly weren't 4 litres in that engine bay anywhere, or it's probably escaped to the void. It would have been scattered. The engine bay is actually quite dry. But also, this was the oil filter that came out of it. Now, whoever's fitted this magnificent beast, I don't really think that would have been working very well, very efficiently. This one goes up inside the sump, but they've over-tightened it, and basically I think the flow through that would have been really kind of non-existent, really. Right, so next job, we diagnosed, we think pretty sure it was oil. Obviously it was, because it sees the big end, but was it filter? Was it lack of oil levels? It could have been both. So we've actually got a third engine coming because that's a little bit down on compression as well. The customer has actually got a spare third one. So we're just going to do some checks on that and basically make the best out of all these engines really to get it back into that engine bay for him. It's the cheapest option way of doing it because you can do engine conversions and engine swaps, but we know inherently they start to get expensive. You know, starting with Spy booster engine, which is the most popular choice, between £3,000 and £4,000. Then you've got his all systems, then management, then dry sump or wet sump pans, then prop shafts, then differential changes, then, you know, all these other things that add up can end up to £6,000, £7,000, £8,000 before you know it. So this will be by far the cheapest way of getting it done. So we'll work with the customer and try and get this up and running as soon as possible. Right guys, well, we've got a lot of questions come out on the internet actually about, well, certain particular things. And one that's cropped up, dry sump tanks. How do you check the oil level? Well, we'll give you a brief description how we check our tank. Now, our tanks are maybe slightly different to others that are on the marketplace, but this is what we do with our tank. If you've got our system, make life easier for yourself. So this is a 5-inch tank. Our height is made for our particular car, etc. And our baffle system that we've got in it. So inside here, you can see it's a spun aluminium, and you've got my finger in there as well, and you've got a little baffle just up in here. You probably see it on top there. But that's the breather system. You probably won't see it, but you can see it in there anyway. So that's baffled. You've got the cap that screws on the top. Very, very simple. And this is where you're going to inspect the oil level in a minute. And then once it's on, it's sealed together. You've got this feeding your engine and this returning from the engine, and this one down here you put in as an option for your oil temperature. Two little breathers here, one from the engine and one basically back out to your catch tank. Inside, what's inside? Well, if you've never looked here inside a dry sump tank, this is what's inside, on our one anyway. Got an O-ring to seal it all. 3 series of baffles here that you can see. These have got little holes that are chamfered in there, and the oil will return in the top of the tank here, spin round, come through, fall through these series of holes, and while it's doing that, it's basically de-aerating the oil, because you don't want air bubbles in your oil and pickup. By the time it gets to the bottom of the pan, you can see the pickup in the bottom there. Picks up from the very bottom, no different to how you would on a normal conventional engine. That's a pickup pipe. So once it's going in through there, well, how do I check the level? How do I know how much engine oil do I need? It's going to vary between engines, but between somewhere around 6 litres, I'm going to say, of oil is where your starting point is, because it depends on your size of your oil cooler and depends what engine you're running. But say on a booster, we run about 6 to 6.5 litres. Now, to check the oil level, you're going to peer through the top of this hole once this is running. So you need to basically start your engine and check it while the engine is running. You can't check the oil level when it's not running. So we pick it up to around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM. The oil will then return here, picking it up from the sump, because it scavenges all the way back up and picks it up and throws it back in here. It'll rotate and spin. Now in here, the baffle plate, once it's rotating, you want to see the oil level at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM sitting somewhere around here, about an inch below this top baffle plate. If you're around there at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, then you're good. If you pick the RPM up even higher and you see the oil drop drastically, like hugely down to below this baffle plate, then it's going to need a top up. But if you're around 3,000 to 4,000 and it is here and it's stabilising about there as you pick up the RPM, that will be perfect. Now, obviously there is variations of tanks. I can't say every tank is the same, but a general scenario is always have it slightly below the top baffle on your dry sump tank. Now, if your top baffle's down here, it's not recommended. Most of them should be sort of at least 3/4 way up the top of the tank. But yeah, very simple process. Our one splits apart, which is very nice. Not all of them do. Some of them are sealed. In fact, there's one from already in here, and we can check that. This one doesn't split. So to actually clean and maintain that tank is very, very challenging. To clean it out if you're doing your service, your oil change. This one here, because it splits apart, you can actually take this, clean it all out, do a proper oil change on your vehicle, clean your tank out, much more easier for maintenance. You've got a clamp here that clamps it all together with a bolt. So we got those in stock and they're on the shelf and ready to go as well. So the other question is, now you know how to do a dry sump, how do you do a wet sump? Right, so dry sump box, tick. Wet sump. So the new Hayabusa wet sump pan system, which is race proven, track ready and everything else, much more simpler to do. Normally you used to do it on the sight glass. There's a sight glass down here. You might challenge to see that, but there is a sight glass for the level. Well, it's not anymore. It has a dipstick. So now most of you know, you drive your own cars, well, a dipstick works, you have a low mark and a high mark. Well, that's pretty much it then. Fill the engine up till you hit the high mark, put the dipstick back in, and you check your oil level. That's why this system is so good and so simple to use, and especially if you're the end user and you're not sure and you're not familiar, it's overly complicated for you. Wet sump sound system works. We know it works on the track as well. Very, very simple to do. Again, you're probably going to be running between 5 and 6 litres of oil in this. This pan does hold a bit more capacity, but it does depend on, again, oil cooler. For example, if you're running a 19 row, 25 row as per this, or 34 row, because that can be the difference of half to 3/4 of a litre of oil in your engine, etc. So again, you'll put your 5 litre oil, run it up so it fills the oil cooler up, and then it won't bypass back through the oil filter. Then you can let it stabilise and check the oil level again, and then fill as or empty as required. But very, very simple, perfect with a dipstick.
Would you call me?
Would you call me? Right, here we are with hashtag Alex Carr, the Black Panther. Yeah, you got you, didn't I? Yeah, awesome. We've started on with this. As you know, we're building this car, slowly pregnancy. But what's the pretty things that have gone on here? You know about the sump system. Well, throttle bodies have gone in. These are the AT ones. Throttle body's really nice. All the loom for this is sort of all plugged in. The clutch slave is on down here. Bit of clutch slave for the wet sump system. Wet sump system ones, they stick out further because of the water pump. Dry sump ones can be moved further in because you don't have this water pump here. You have an oil pump for your dry sump system. Wiring's starting to come in, and we were just waiting for the ECU section. that plugs into this one here. The rest of it is then battery, fuses, relays and all that going in into the AIM dashboard, which is here. And this is also going to have, which we're just wiring up, the guys are doing it now, wiring up all the freewheel for the indicators, high beam, horn, etc. So that's going to look pretty tricky in there with all the dashboard as well. Working around, we've been on with the fuel system here, which we will get to show you on the next one actually, but the fuel system here, a similar thing we're going to do in the K21. Fuel pump is here, and fuel level sender is here, a blanking plate, and inside there is the pump, fuel filter and fuel pressure regulator all built into the tank. Just makes it life easier for the install, and lots of single pipe coming out to your fuel line. Makes life way easier. Tried and tested on the Cup 200 cars, no issues at all, but that's all buttoned up now, the fuel tank and all the bracketry, diff, rear end, handbrake cables, they've all gone into those as well. Brady brake lines have also gone in, so you can't see them but they're down here. They're Brady brake lines and all that's gone in as well. So yeah, cracking on. Things like the handbrake all operational now. Exhaust systems all on this side, nice shiny stuff, and handbrake in. And we have a little switch here that goes down for your little switch for your on and off. There's a little switch there you can see going up and down for your on and off on that. And yeah, all the exhaust system on here, all buttoned down, etc. as well. So header tanks in, oil catch can here. This will breathe off and come off from the engine there. That's not a problem. But yeah, that's pretty much it really on this one this week. But on with wiring, a little bit of plug and play stuff. Some of it we have to modify for the freewheel for all of that to work. But it's not rocket science, and they'll crack on with it. Right, here we are. It's well, MAN rush time. MAN Motorsport, the M3 engine, the big old stonk that's in the front in there. Well, we're stripping it down a little bit actually to helping out with the IVA stuff on this particular wheel. Bit of a prep time on it as well. Lots of little issues, unfortunately. Bits and bobs, which is fuel lines and all of that. The brake lines, there was lots of issues in this tunnel area. Which won't comply, and it's a safety issue, let's be honest with you. So it's unfortunately ulterior has had to come out completely to get to all of this section in here and run new fuel lines that she's running here, because the fuel lines that were in them weren't compatible, so it's new hoses and these will get wrapped up. Some of the electrics needed securing in a better position as well. So some of the bits, I mean, there was quite a lot of little bits. The engine was touching on the bulkhead here, just there. You won't see it now, but just in there, and I'm talking, we've probably got about a 5mm gap where this engine block was actually touching the bulkhead. So every time we started the car, you could hear this knocking noise right the way through the chassis. So we've managed to wiggle all the engine mounts and the gearbox mounts and managed to move it slightly just so we get clearance on the bulkhead. So yeah, we're tearing into this one. There's a reasonable list to do on this, mainly for not the build as in building the whole car, but making sure that you're IVA compliant. There's things like this. Or this is going to be an issue because it's not going to comply with, well, the 2.5mm. If that doesn't hit within the 127mm this steering wheel, that's a sharp edge, that will fail. This button's got a sharp edge, unfortunately it doesn't comply, so this is going to have to come out. It's silly little things like that you have to do. They've got a knob here that sits here, that doesn't fall in the radius, that hasn't got a 2.5mm radius. That button will, well, you can either remove it or put one in, it does have a radius on it. So lots of little bits on the MA Rush. It is running and etc, and we've got to do some things for the exhaust system on it because it's a wee bit noisy with that silence on there. I think it was 120 decibels we measured it at, considering you need to be 99 decibels for IPA at 3/4 of your RPM, measured at half meters at 45 degrees from the tailpipe. That is definitely not going to apply. So we're going to make another system that will probably be a rear exit system on this, give it a bit more silencing and dampening on the noise. But yeah, a bit of slow burner, working through the workshop over the winter project to get this out and ready for IVA. Right, here we are with the Ecoboost. As you know, this was all running, it had gearbox issues, all gone back in, RLM done the engine, got the supercharger on it, big horsepower. Well, we fit it all back together, done a bit of a few tests on it, road tests, etc. as well. And then it turns out, unfortunately, once we start checking all chain, because this has normally has a chain and sprocket here, which we've whipped out, unfortunately, before we got to video everything. We whipped that out because the sprocket on the rear has got a large sprocket and a bike sprocket. So you've got big sprocket, little sprocket. This particular one, the big one, was more oval than round. So as the chain, as it went round, it went tight, slack. The chain was literally doing this. The teeth were, instead of being straight, were curved at a C-hook, and then probably about 5 or 6 of them were missing tops of the teeth. So we've had to take the whole SSD unit out. It's not something we supply as a part. We've had to send that off and get the sprocket machined up, because the company that made these, nothing was really standardised. There isn't a part off the shelf, you can just buy it. It depended on what LSD unit used. It could have been a Ford Fiesta, Ford Mondeo, I've been informed, and various other differences, and different teeth sprockets, because you could have 45, 54, 52. So it did vary massively on that. So that's out. Within a week or so we should get that back. We can bolt that back in, because he already had a chain snap before on it, and I think that was why it's gone. You can see here damage where he had the chain snapped, because I think the sprocket was going tight and loose, and of course if you tighten it up on the loose side and it's gone really tight, the chain's going to snap, and in which it caused, it whipped up here and damaged that on the customer's car. So it's just a bit of information for you guys out there, if you've got this type of vehicle, to make sure that when you're tightening your chain tension, that it's fully at the same thing on complete rotation of the wheel. But that's it, Ecoboost time. It'll be up and running pretty soon. Right, here we are, chicks at 1000 time, K2. As you know, we've done a complete engine swap on this particular one. A few little problems with it, which was seals and things like that, because some of these older engines you might buy second-hand off of eBay. You don't know exactly where it's come from, reliable sources, etc. Unfortunately, when you bolt it all in, run it all up, you get the odd leak here and there, which is an oil seal, could be a thermostat seal, could be anything within the engine there. It had a couple of those. We was waiting for those parts to come in. They were on back order. They're bolted together now. It's had the front carbon arches and the rear carbon arches put onto it, as you know, the other week. So basically, we're waiting for that weather to break now. We can go and do a bit of test driving in it, just do the final checks, make sure she's all sealed up and buttoned, and yeah, get it back and sent back to the customer. So looking forward to that. Right, here we go, guys. It's Ecoboost time. Been on with this project for a little while. We're doing things backwards and forwards. Now the engine, its final install, because the tricky bit is getting it in, but then it's getting to clear all the bodywork and everything else. So now that's bolted in, we've set about, these are just basic mock-up engine mounts and everything else, and now we're setting about on the alternator locations, belts and everything else to tie up, pulleys, throttle body mounting on it as well. But engine is pretty much in. I'll lift that off for you. Oh, it's taped down. I won't do that. I'll pull it off because the guys are working it as we speak. So it's steering rack, steering alignment bar, bottom link bar. This has got to be lined up and fitted in, which we will clear the alternator here, and that's the whole point of doing the whole mock-up with the engine mounts, everything else. Gearbox is in. Now, obviously, we're on mock-up stages at the moment, but that's still in as well, gearbox. I mean, the basic gearbox mount, which has got to be changed. It's just on our mock-up chassis. So 99% sure it's all good to go with a final position and clearance on bodywork, bonnet scoops and everything else. This is an extremely tall engine, this 2.3 Ecoboost. So it has caused a few problems, as they always do when they're that tall. When you've got a 7 replica, you're either making a massive scoop for it to fit under, which we don't really want because it ruins the lines of the bodywork and ruins the lines of the car. Easiest solution would have been, yeah, just make a bigger scoop, but it looked a bit ugly. So we're just trying to fit it up with our conventional stuff, which we're now pretty happy that we've achieved. So now we're on with that, and it's on with the final bits of alternate location, steering link bars for right-hand drive and left-hand drive. Of course, left-hand drive, we have got a few of these going out to the Canada, USA market as well. To be honest with you, the left-hand drive steering link bar is going to be way easier than the right-hand drive, because we've got an alternator. This, we've got a straight shot straight up to the steering wheel, so no problems and no dramas there. So a few more bits to do on it to button that up, and then we'll start on with a few bits like intercooler pipe. We've got a nice turbo sticking here, look. Who don't love a turbo? Tell me you don't love a turbo. Go on, nod. You're looking at the screen, I can see you're nod. Who loves a turbo? So yeah, that's cracking on, and in the next couple of weeks we should have it finally done, do the final jigs for it, get a chassis made and into production. Right, here we are with the next build, which is the K20 wheel, #Collins car. On with a few bits that you saw last week: steering rack, rockers, push rods, completely refurbished. Uprights here, it's all brand new, the bearings and bearing carriers and flanges and everything's all new. Brake lines are in, pedal box is in. Billet one, we do like them. Lovely little logo on there, isn't there? That's all in as well, and you're moving on to the rear. This is a bit of a slow burner with a build with the customer because there's a lot of prep work to be done. Got the rear end on, wishbones top and bottom, suspension on, and fuel tank fixed in. That's got the swell pot on it, and this will run our sort of fuel pump setup and fuel filter setup that all gets bolted into the tank, which we'll show you actually once we get to that stage. We'll show you how that works. But also what we've been doing is a lot of prep work. Gearbox has been checked over and all painted up, and then the diff as well. That's all been braced and welded, so we do the bracing on the welding on the diff here on the arms on the Mazda ones. They are known just here, they have a little slot, sort of an impact thing that's designed as a fault that they crack. If you brace them front and rear like we've done on this one, you get no problems. I mean, there's zero problems with it actually once you do that. Zero problems. We've had no issues at all, even with big horsepower on them. So that's been going along. If you're talking about chassis and builds and you want to get yourself in a queue and you can see where the queue is at the moment, if you're already in it, it's up there on this side, Anna. Yes, it is this week. Right, that's it for another workshop walk. Another one done. Well, we've just taken delivery. That's another Hayabusa engine hitting our doorstep to a lucky customer. And if you want to know more about the range of the MK Sportscars, the Striker, the Cup 200, then hook us up with a phone call or an email. Guess what, guys? Like, share, subscribe. Yes, we will catch you next week.